okay, yeah, we know there's a war going on, but you'll all be under the auspices of the UN. Well, that sounded kind of like, okay. And yeah, you'll be helicoptered in and you do the show and then you come straight out. And we went, well, okay, what could possibly go wrong, right?
Right.
So we turned up and.
Except there's a war.
No, we knew there was a war.
Yeah.
And the guy that took us, that was responsible for getting us there, was a guy called Major Martin Morris, and he actually was in Sarajevo with the British Army, and he was a rock fan, so he was running the rock show on the local radio station, and it gave him the crazy idea. So he just got in touch with a magazine in England called Kerrang, which is a rock magazine. And said, any chance we could get like Motorhead or Metallica? They went, go boil your head. What's wrong with you? He said, well, we must be able to get somebody, you know. What about Bruce Dickinson? You know, and they phoned me up and I went, yeah, that's a crazy idea. Yeah.
Just crazy enough.
Why not? You know. Yeah. So the next thing, we were on a military trooping flight to Split, which was on a 737 with some soldiers who were all going into theatre, and we arrive in Split expecting, and indeed our little UN blue helmets and our flak jackets were all piled up in the corner when we got off the plane, and the guy just gave us our boarding passes back and said, you're going on that plane, you just off you go back home. We went, well, what happened to the helicopter? He goes, haven't got any helicopters left. The weather's too bad, and in any case, the UN don't want you to go do it because you might upset the Serbs, and they don't want to upset anybody at the moment, by cheering up the Bosnians. So
wow,
we went, oh, okay. Well, when's the next flight if we don't take this one? He goes, it's in a week. I went, okay. Well, the beer's cheap here, and we're sure we can find a couple of floors to sleep on, and maybe we'll do a couple of gigs locally. We'll have some fun, heck. And then a local guy, cameraman, who was working for Reuters, but he was a local Bosnian guy, came up and started saying, oh, this is typical UN bullshit. He goes, we can get you into the city. I went, really? He goes, yeah, there's a tunnel. And there is a tunnel. There is a tunnel. And it's still there because they've kept it and they've preserved it. Well, at least some of it. It's in a house by the airport. You go into the house, you go down, and they dug this tunnel underneath the airport to resupply the city. But it's tiny. I mean, you'd have to be a dwarf to get in it. And they had this tiny little railway line that was like that big. I mean, it was like something out of World War II. That you'd escape a German prisoner of war camp. I mean, there's no way we'd have been able to get through this tunnel. But anyway, he said there was a tunnel, and there was. So I said, okay, if there's a tunnel, maybe there's a chance we could get in. He said, yes. He said, I will call the president now. I went, the president? He said, yes. Ibrahimovic is a friend of mine. He said, I'll call him. So he goes to the phone booth and puts money in the phone booth.
Wow.
And
to call the president.
Just chatting away. I'm going, okay. And he comes out and I said, well, what did he say? He goes, he's not in. I went, so I said, well, look, guys, to the guys in the band and the crew, and we had about three crew with us. And I said, what do you want to do? I said, if anybody wants to go home, can't stop you. I guess we all go home, or not, up to you. And they all went, no, let's.
The beer's cheap.
Yeah, the beer's cheap. So then we became guests of the British Army. Who turned up and went, you're nothing to do with the UN now. We went, well, obviously not. They went, well, in that case, you must be guests of the British Army. So step this way. So we put our drum kit and some bits and bobs. We had about 500 pounds weight of equipment. So it fitted in quite a small space, So it all went in with the weapons in the armory. So we
Wow.
had the drum kit sitting next door to the, the
Cache of weapons.
all their kit, military kit. And then we sat down and got a full situation report from an RAF, Royal Air Force briefing guy about what was really going on, who was really shooting at who on that particular day. And there was a lot of people shooting at a lot of people on that particular day, a lot of them around exactly where we would be going, you know. And from my limited military experience, I was like, this is not going to be a predictable course of action that we're taking here. So we, anyway, we had the problem of the logistics of how to get there. We couldn't do anything. But suddenly at midnight, this truck pulls up outside. It was a Unimog truck, basically a flatbed truck with a hooped top, canvas top, bright yellow with Asterix, Felix the Cat, and Roadrunner painted on the outside of it.
That's not going to attract any snipers.
Well, nobody. Who would? I mean, honestly, who's going to shoot Roadrunner?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you have to be heartless.
You're asking for it.
So we thought, there's a bunch of idiots in this truck. Nobody would be foolish enough to shoot. Surely they wouldn't shoot a bunch of, complete maniacs. So we get in the back of the truck, crate of beer, and some sleeping bags, and off we go. And it's winter, so it's mid-December. So it gets quite chilly. 8-hour drive through the fog. We get hijacked by, well, not hijacked. Yeah, we
stopped at a checkpoint, maybe.
No, guy just jumped out in the road and put an AK-47 at the front of the truck, so we stopped.
Impromptu checkpoint.
And no, he was
just a guy.
He wanted a lift. He was a Bosnian soldier. He just wanted a lift to the base of the hill. So we gave him a lift.
All right.
As you do. He had the gun, we didn't. So we got to the base, the bottom of the hill, and the hill was Mount Igman. So it was a 7,500 foot mountain. We went up the mountain track up to the top and eventually ended up going down the other side at dawn. Now, where we were going was an active firefight. So, because I could see star shells and parachute flares and all that good stuff on the top of the hill, I thought, that's where we're going. So, as it got towards dawn, it all died down. The Bosnian army was going home. It wasn't really it wasn't a conventional army because nobody had any weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, they were basically all waiting for the weapon to be passed down to the next guy.
Right. You're in line behind a bunch of guys waiting for a dead guy.
Well, they were all going home in dump trucks. I mean, there were just dump trucks and things and everything. There was a couple of cars that had Red Cross on the side that had been shot full of holes, blood everywhere. So they were shooting up ambulances. The one thing that struck me as I was going through it, because it was at night, was you could just see what an incredibly beautiful country it was, and what a tragic place it was turning into. Yeah. And of course, we hadn't even got to Sarajevo. We got to the Bosnian army checkpoint, which was a caravan on like railway sleepers, with a single strand wire and lots of clothing hung out to dry, which it was freezing cold and covered in snow. They were frozen stiff. I thought, well, what's with the hanging out the laundry? And of course,
not for drying.
No, sniper screen. So it was there, so they couldn't see people walking around because the Serbs were basically surrounded the entire city on the ridgeline, but that particular mountain was the only access in and out of the city that was anything resembling a road. Yeah. And it wasn't a road, it was just a track. It was just a dirt track up and down, up and over the hill. So
what year was this?
94.
Okay.
Christmas 94, just before Carter went in. Carter went in just after that. A funny story that I didn't find out. I keep finding out things about Sarajevo, years later. Yeah. So years later, when we left Sarajevo, I'll paraphrase, cut to the chase. When we left Sarajevo, We did actually leave in a helicopter. We drove out through the front lines and into Croatia. And in Croatia, there was a military base there with the Royal Gloucester Regiment, UK regiment was there. The guy gave me his beret, so I've still got his beret, and he's got something from mine. I don't know what. But so there were 2 Sea King helicopters there. They were the only Sea King helicopters in theatre. And there were only, I think, 3 other UN helicopters in theatre. That was it. One of them, on the day we arrived in Sarajevo, one of them had been shot down with the commander-in-chief on board, General Sir Michael Rose.
Well,
he was the guy that had to watch. He was a former commander of the Special Air Service, right? He had to listen as 2 of his SAS guys bled out and died because the UN wouldn't let him mount an operation to rescue them. Right? Okay, so I have to say that my opinion of the UN as a result of some of the things I saw in Sarajevo is somewhat variable. But anyway, so there was this story that what happened was that we were told that the helicopter had taken 5 rounds through the main fuel tank and a couple of taken out chunks out of the main rotor. The guy, RAF pilot, Navy pilot, sorry, let's get that right.
Yeah.
Navy pilot did an incredible job getting the helicopter down in one piece. And they were changing the main rotor blade in the field as we got into the next door helicopter to fly back to Split. And I then had the worst hangover of my life after they invited us to the party for the pilot.
Yeah.
Back in the mess in Split. Years later, I'm doing a charity thing for a thing called Help for Heroes in the UK. And it involved British Airways simulators, and we were flying vets who'd been wounded in some way, and just giving them, simulator rides in airplanes.
Right.
And so they asked me along as a sort of guest pilot to help out. So I'm there, and an engineer comes up to me, now working for British Airways, and he said, "You were in Sarajevo." I went, "Yeah, I was." He goes, "I was there the same time as you. I was maintaining the helicopters." I went, "No kidding."
No
He said,
kidding.
"Yeah." He said, "I was there the day that you left in the chopper." He said, "Because I was changing
the rotor
blade in the next door helicopter." I said, "The one that had that was the one that they told us that it was the AK-47s from the drug smuggler on the top of Igman who put some rounds in because he was just nervous." He went, "Who told you that horse shit?"
Wow.
I said, "Well, that was the rumor that went round." He goes, "It was Serb 50 cal anti-aircraft."
What? Oh my God.
I went, "Oh, well, that rather puts a different perspective on it." So they would have known almost certainly that he was on that flight.
Yeah.
And that Carter was coming in. And if they'd taken down the commander-in-chief in a Sea King, that would have been that. And the peace process would have been kicked into the long grass. So that gives you a perspective of the insanity and the madness that was there. And I was only there for 3 or 4 days, 5 days, something like that.